Welcome to Jared Scott Outdoors. This YouTube channel is dedicated to getting our youth more involved in the outdoors. To do this, I'll be out with family and friends doing all sorts of outdoor adventures. This week on Jared Scott Outdoors, I'm finally able to edit some of the hunts you haven't seen yet. The hunt I'm showing you this week was a tough but fulfilling hunt I had with my son Kade. He was lucky enough to draw a controlled hunt for bull elk for late October. He actually had the same tag that my son Riley had. And if you recall, Riley ate tag soup as we struggled to find elk. With Kade having that exact tag, even though we were hunting some different days, we'd be fighting the same low elk numbers, so our work was cut out for us. But he was game and had hopes of finding a big bull. Kade and I decided that because there wasn't very much snow this year, we would head up into some really high country that has potential to hold big bulls. It takes a bit to hike over a high pass that really isn't feasible if there's a lot of snow. So this would be a good year to go because there wasn't much snow on the ground, if there were any elk hiding out in this hard to get to area. Getting over the top of the ridge just at first light so we could see down into the basin below us, we hunkered down, pulled out the spotting scope, and started glassing. We've been out with Riley a couple different days and not had any luck, so Kade and I are hoping that we can change what's been going on and get some luck going. It's a drainage that I've seen good bulls and bucks in years past, so I knew the potential was there. I was happy to spot movement right off the bat. It was clear at the bottom of the canyon, but it was easy to tell we had some elk feeding out in the open. Getting the spotting scope on the elk and trying to pick through them as they fed out and into view, we found that there were at least 3 bulls in the mix. Even though it was super low light, a couple of them appeared to be smaller bulls, but there was another that looked a little bit bigger. I wanted to get a better look at him as it continued to get lighter, but the elk were moving in and out of view so much that it was hard to get a good look at him. That being said, I was pretty sure it was just a 5-point, or a small 6 at best. So for the meantime, we kept looking for more animals. And we found some more. I spotted what I thought was a lone bull, which got me excited that it might be a big one. With the lighting and the background, I couldn't make out how big it was, but my first thought was that it was a pretty good bull. Then I noticed a handful of other elk nearby. They all turned out to be cows. So I was left with the one bull that I wanted a better view of. And to make it better, these elk were much closer than that first group we saw. Looking back at that bull, it still wasn't moving. I just needed it to get out of that spot so I could see the antlers better. After quite some time, it started feeding out, so we could finally get the view that we needed. I quickly realized that this was a unique bull. It actually palmates at the top on both sides, more on its right side than the left. Even with the odd antlers, it was just a 5-point bull, but again, a unique bull. It wasn't as big as I had been hoping, but it was a pretty cool bull. Meanwhile, that other herd, the first ones we'd seen, had all been heading off in one direction, kind of like they had somewhere they wanted to go. I got the camera back on them just as they entered a thick patch of trees and looked to be taking a route that would likely take them out of the drainage. So those elk were no longer even ones for us to consider. But this guy was still an option.
Alright, so my dad got up here at about 7:30 and saw a herd down the bottom, and there's a potential shooter bull, and then my dad saw another herd over to the left that has a decent bull, but not too big, so we're going to pass it up and see if we can't find another one.
It's just kind of tough because that first herd disappeared on us, and the direction it went put it kind of out of reach for us because of how we came into this unit or this area. And then this other one that's got this 5-point that's kind of got a really odd set of antlers, but I don't know, we thought about it, but in the end decided to maybe keep looking. So it's tough because we haven't been seeing a lot, so it's hard to say, you know, do you take the first one you see, or do you wait and risk that tag soup? That's what Kade is going to find out. All right, several hours later, other side of the unit, we are back to the country we know best.
see if we can turn something up for this evening. It's about 4:30, so we've only got 2.5 hours. We are trying to fly in as fast as we can just to get a look at one spot for the evening. So hopefully something will happen, because we're just pushing it as hard as we can. See if we can turn something up.
That spot we had hunted in the morning was on the other side of the unit. After not finding what we were looking for, we made a fast hike out and a several-hour drive to get to this spot. It had been a long day, but we had to try.
This sucks. I was gonna ask you what you think of this hike, but it sucks. Okay. It's not like it's steep.
Yeah, the spot we were trying to get to required another very steep climb to get to a good vantage point. We had no idea if we'd even find anything, but it would be a spot that would allow us to see a lot of country. After the big hike we'd already done this morning, our legs were getting pretty wobbly on this big incline.
All right, we're almost there. But is anything over here? Probably not.
Finally, getting near the top where it opened up, we caught our breath and then carefully walked over to the edge where we could see miles of country, not only below us, but way out in front of us. Surely, with all this country, we should be able to spot something. After not seeing anything with a quick first look, we gained a little more elevation up a rocky point so we could open up the view even more.
All right, so me and my dad came up to this new spot and hiked our tail ends off to try to get up here in time to have some light left, and nothing up here. The sun has gone down, so we're gonna try to get off this mountain with a little bit of light left.
A week later, with the hunt ending in just 2 days, Kade and I headed out again. We had 2 days to try to make something happen. We hiked in to be at a good vantage point for this particular canyon when it got light, and sure enough, spotted an elk about a half-mile away. It was feeding in and out of a thick pocket of trees. As we watched, we did spot antlers. Well, kind of. It was a spike, but maybe there were more. Another elk did show up, and when we could finally see its head, it was a bigger bull.
All right, so me and my dad decided to come up to a canyon that we came up last weekend and saw nothing. And within the first 30 minutes, my dad spotted a bull, got the spotting scope on it, and it was a spike. Now another 5-point, we think, popped out with it. So we're gonna jet up there and to a spot where we could shoot into it and see if any other bulls pop out.
With how this hunt had gone, and it ending in just a couple days, we were no longer going to be as picky. Picking up our stuff, Kade and I headed towards those bulls, hoping there was a bigger one. But Kade already told me that at this point, he'd take whatever we found. But that might change, because as we were taking a breather, we spotted some elk a long ways off. And while it was tough to tell, this one looked to be a bull as well.
Clear over there, probably 2 miles away, we happened to see an elk. And we figured, well, let's check it. It disappeared in the patch of trees, but then Kade spotted another elk coming in from above. And it looks like it's either a big 6 or a small 6 or a big 5. The one that I saw that disappeared, I have a feeling is another bull. It's significantly bigger than this one. So Kade said, nope, let's go for the big one. There's a lot of risk because we've got to drop. Well, we've got a ridge in between us, so we're going to drop 1,000 feet, go up over that ridge, 500, 600, 700 feet, drop down, and then we're going to have probably about a 1,500 foot climb to get in position. So this is going to take several hours.
Well, to move along on this story, we made the long hike that took several hours to get all the way over to where we hoped the elk would be. Getting to a point that we expected we might find the elk from, we hunkered down and set up the spotting scope. We did find quite a few deer, one group with a decent buck that seemed to be just moving through, and another group of deer staying put.
All right, it is freezing up here. There's a very stiff, cold wind right now. All we can see are some deer, not the elk yet. We're not on the ridge that we were hoping to shoot from. I was hoping to find them from here. We can't quite see in there well enough, so we'll make another 400-yard jump over and get a bit closer and see if we can find these guys.
We kept moving closer, making sure to keep out of sight. Getting up to this rocky ledge that would allow us to see everything much better, it would also put us in range for a shot. With that, Kade chambered around while we still had terrain to cover the noise of the bolt, and then we finished sneaking on in. Sure enough, right below us in the open was an elk. It was a bull, and had no idea we were up there above it while it was casually feeding. This was definitely not the bull we had seen, so we kept watching for it. A cow and a calf materialized right in front of us as well, but not the big one yet.
So they're sitting at 300 yards right now. So perfect place. We just got to find that big bull. Hopefully he's here. We don't know for sure because we just don't know. But he's worth waiting on because I don't think this 5 points go anywhere.
The deer actually ended up coming down into the same area with the elk. They seemed to tolerate each other to a point. Every now and then the elk would aggressively jump at the deer that would run off just a little ways and then go back to feeding. Meanwhile, we couldn't find that bigger bull. There were still some trees that could be bedded up in that would keep it hid, but we were getting nervous about not finding it. This bull just kept tempting us. However, in all honesty, although it was a 5 point, it was a pretty small bull. Its body was barely bigger than what a spike usually is. So for now, we just kept watching for that bigger one.
Well, we've now been up here for 3 hours. Just waiting for that bigger bull to show up. And it very well might be that he's gone. There's not a lot of trees, but we couldn't see everything. So it's hard to say if you just take the 5 and call it or stick it out a little bit, because as it stands right now, if we shoot it, we'll still be going out in the dark, is my guess. Good thing that's his choice.
Alright, so it's been about 4 hours of us just watching this little herd move around, and we think that the other one must have slipped out, so we're going to go ahead and take the other one.
We took some time to make sure Kade was very stable to shoot from. Once he was set and had the green light to take the shot when ready, he hesitated. He was having second thoughts about taking this animal.
Alright, so as we got down and settled down for a shot and just got looking at it, I decided that I wanted to get a bigger one that would give me a little bit more of that buck fever, that made me more excited.
It's been fun here listening to Kade debate on whether or not to get this, to take this bull. We've been planning on it if the big one didn't show up, and it just didn't give him that buck fever thing that he kind of mentioned. And we talked about it as far as, all right, are you okay eating tag soup? And he decided, yeah, he was, that he wants to risk tomorrow, as far as, we got a little bit of time tonight, and tomorrow seeing if he can get a bigger one, knowing that he might eat tag soup, but he's willing to risk that. So anyways, we'll keep hunting.
We packed up and tried to guess where that other bull could have gone, but in the end, never did find it. As we hiked our way out, and with barely any light left, we did spot a herd of elk way above the trail. There wasn't any time to do anything about it now, but since we could see there was a bull in the mix, we'd make sure to be here at first light. Well, there's not much to what happened next. We made sure to be where we'd seen the elk at first light, and sure enough, the elk were right there. It took some work to get into range, and then Kade set up for the shot.
There you got him.
All right, Kade, you made it happen.
I made it happen.
That was a long hunt.
It was indeed.
5 point, how do you feel about that?
I'm happy about it.
All right.
Alright, there it is.
Well, good job, Kade.
Yup.
That was a hard hunt. Frustrating a lot of days, no elk. Made it happen on the last morning of the last day. Good job. So Kade, what do you think of the hunt?
It was rough, for sure. Took a while, but finally got it.
So you were after a 6-point, obviously. Every guy is. We came away with a 5-point, not quite the mature bull you were hoping for. How do you feel about that?
I'm happy. After a few days of working on tail ends off, it definitely makes it worth it, for sure.
So we found out later that the herd here has been depleted a fair amount, so there's not as many elk as we kind of expected there to be. It has been tough. It hasn't been a cold winter yet as far as snow goes, and so they haven't really been pushed out of the high stuff. Of course, we've been looking through all the high stuff. But either way, in the end, you know, when it comes down to it, we were able to get that tag filled, and it's a young bull, obviously. It'll make it easier to pack out. It'll be really good meat, so there's always those pluses and minuses. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's another great experience that me and Kade were able to have. A lot of fun memories, freezing in the tent, freezing on the mountainside. In the end, tagging a bull and now packing it out. And we'll get to go home and call up the kids and say, all right, everybody come over and help, even all you married ones, to work on this meat, and then they can take it home and fill their freezers with it as well. So anyways, congratulations, Kade.
Thanks.
Good times, good memories, and we'll be back out here again. That's going to wrap it up. We'll see you next week. These episodes can't be done without your help. You know the drill. Please make some comments, like, and subscribe, and I'll keep working on more videos.